Running your practice is stressful, and probably the biggest stressor is financial. You carry that with you, but how do you keep it at work and out of your relationships at home? It's easy to say, it's not always so easy to do. It can be subtle, it can be obvious. Either way, not so easy to do. My guest today is a financial advisor who works with practice owners on their business and personal finances, and he sees this question in a number of his clients, and he's going to share the advice that he gives to them. I'm Carl White, principal at Mark Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. It's usually what they want, but let's face it, when the owners of the practice who are making all the business decisions are also the providers of care, we can feel pretty confident that patient care and needs of patients are always going to stay in the considerations of when any kind of decision has been made. It's not always the same when it's a hospital, a health system, private equity, whatever it is. If you are making a business decision and then you've got to go and take care of a patient, it's very confident that the patient's needs are always going to be considered. My guest today is Randall Avery. Randall helps professionals, practice owners, and pre-retirees turn financial uncertainty into clarity and confidence. Clients often come to him feeling overwhelmed by big decisions about retirement, investing, taxes, and cash flow, unsure if they're making the right moves. Randall's role is to simplify the noise, help clients define what financial success means to them, and create a clear plan that supports both their life and their values. Randall, thanks for coming on Practice Care.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited about this. I love practice owners, as you read in the bio. And let's get into this conversation, I think really moves the needle, not only personally, but financially.
Yeah, and it's funny. So my father owned a pharmacy for 40 odd years, independent pharmacy when you could still find them. And I worked in it from time to time when I was a teenager. And it's funny, it's like he would lock the front door at the end of the day and like a different Alan White became real. And I would always look at him and go, how do you do that? Like, and what was swirling in his eye? How do you do that? Anyway, so maybe we'll get into some of that. But first, um, regular listeners know that was a short bio. That's what I asked for. Tell us more about you, your firm. Help us get to know you a bit.
Yeah, like mentioned, my name is Randall Avery. I'm a certified financial planner and holder of the Charter Financial Analyst designation. All those things need to know is I always have to act in my client's best interest. I'm located here in the Atlanta metro area. I'm a financial planner, and everybody says niche down so you can super serve your clients.
Mhm.
I super serve a specific client base, which are practice owners, and practice owners have a something consistent. Their highest P&L expenses headcount, so it's
Mhm.
really hard to scale.
Mhm.
They're heavy, good, really good with cash flow running. And my goal is to help folks take those challenges, those difficulties, and build wealth and build the life that they've always wanted. And I love that you mentioned earlier, not always thinking about going corporate or being bought out by somebody. There's such a need for private practice owners and how we can tailor things to meet our clients' needs. So my goal is to give them the financial means to do what they do more and really enjoy their life.
Amen. And the corporate ownership, corporate being a broad word, it is, we are swimming upstream, I feel, you and I, and everybody who agrees with what you just said. You hear, I'll say stories of hope, but they're individual of somebody who went inside and came back out, and anyway, we are here for you, if that is you. So we're here to talk about keeping your financial stress at work. The other way to sort of say that is, don't bring it into your relationships at home. And like I said earlier, my father, maybe necessarily, and I say this with love, he was no fun to be around in that store. He was not. One of my jobs was to be a delivery guy, all the equipment and everything. That was my favorite one because it got me out of the store. It was better when but that's how he had to be. But then he would lock the door at the end of the day. I'm telling you, I was standing there and a different guy. And I just, when I was old enough to perceive it, I just said to myself, how do you like instant. How do you do that? What conversations he and my mother were, I don't know. But there was no fight. It was good. And I appreciate it now. So how often is this a topic for you with your clients?
This is consistent not only with practice owners, but most high powered professionals. It
Mm.
is hard to just flip that switch and turn it off when you come home. And it's actually an evolution. Most people have to go on that journey. They're not instantly wired to flip that switch off. Why?
Mhm.
Because we as practice owners, it's always in the back of our mind. Our business, our plans and ideas, those conversations sneak in at the dinner table. And
Mhm.
we consistently expect everything around us our loved ones, our kids, our spouse to behave like our business. And that's just
Mm,
not how real life works. So
mhm,
this comes up on a consistent basis, whether it's, hey, you're not present with me because you're always thinking about business. There's expectations you're having of me, which, hey, I'm not your employee. And also, let's talk about time.
mm.
Time that we spend growing our business, especially in the early years, is almost non-existent. So how do you communicate those things with your partner so that they feel like they're on the team with you? Because if there's an anchor or somebody fighting against you growing your business, that's just one extra challenge that really we don't have the capacity to take.
Yeah. Why don't you get it? Why don't you understand this? Don't you see? Those
Mhm.
are all, right? Those are
Yeah.
all, complaint starters, I guess. Yeah.
I have four complaints that I really see a lot.
Okay.
And the first one, we can talk about each one. How much is enough?
Mm. Hmm.
So your partner has been through it with you for a while and life is good, everything is financed, but you're still in that lockdown grind mode. So the question I hear a lot is how much is enough?
Hmm.
I want my love, the person I married back.
Hmm.
And that's a tough thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Like, what do you do with that? Because on the one hand, well, I always want more. Well, that's like, what do you need? And I'll bet you that 10 out of 10 haven't really figure that out for them, like in a concrete enough way, even if it's not a number itself, to say, okay, here's the floor. We must at least be at the floor. Did, right? Am I right about that?
Yeah. At least some people have a certain lifestyle, certain things they want to do with their kids. What is that number or that nugget you have to crack every single month, every single year?
Yeah. Yeah. So what are the other ones?
Um, I think so. It's how much there's for. Let's talk about the business owner. There's a level of prestige they want.
Okay.
They want a firm or a practice of a certain size. I
Mm,
want so many employees. I want so much staff. I want my building to look a certain way. I want
mm,
certain aesthetics when folks walk in.
mhm,
Um, and non-self, they want a level of care that sometimes takes money.
mhm,
So they have to figure out what that number is, and
mhm,
and really it's communicating that with your partner, saying, is are you okay with this?
mhm.
And inviting them on that journey. Because sometimes it's so easy to be like, let me just focus on my business.
Yeah. So you've got how much is enough? I'll say it a different way, correct me. Is my ego being satisfied? You mentioned there were two others. What are
Yeah,
those?
yeah. So and other is how much risk is responsible?
I thought the
And
first two were hard. That's an even harder one.
these are like in yourself gut wrenching questions. How much risk is responsible?
Yeah.
And that's different for different couples. So
Hmm.
some people will cash out all of their 401k to go into business.
Right.
Other folks will cash out their 401k and mortgage their home to go into business. Even other folks will say, hey, I want you to ask your parents, not
Mhm.
the business owner parents, the spouse's parents, hey, can we have a loan? How much risk is enough?
And
And
I'm
I
curious on the first two, how often do you see, so you've got, the draining of the 401k and a mortgage, that the spouse said, you did what? Like, what are you what? Where it's not even communicated. How often do you see that?
sometimes I haven't. Those are, I feel like, on the more extreme case.
Okay,
A
good.
lot of
Okay,
times
good.
but it's levels of communication, right?
Yeah.
Some it's, I think it's a great idea if we just take a mortgage loan and then all of a sudden mail comes in and it says, hey, your mortgage balance is
Yeah.
XYZ. Now it's
Why'd
like,
we
hold
get two
on.
statements? Well, there's the second mortgage too. Like, there's the what?
And then the 401, and it differs.
Yeah.
But just know any case where it isn't fully communicated does cause relationship harm.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what's the last one?
The last one is, how long are we going to keep doing this? You said this was just a season.
These are not quick questions, Randall. These are
These are
these
not
are
quick.
not simple, like, you know, do we need more eggs from the grocery store? These are hard.
So a lot of people can get their head around 1 or 2 years are going to be tough.
Hmm.
What about 5 years? What
Hmm.
about 10 years? And just a season may not just be money; it could be time.
Hmm.
Time you're spending away for your kids, time you're spending away from your spouse. Sometimes you're moving to a different location or traveling a lot.
Hmm.
How long is this season going to last?
Yeah.
And nobody can give you an answer to that because business is what it is. It's going to grow how it grows.
Hmm.
But just know that your partner's feeling those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And trying to be a good soldier and, supportive and holding it in. And yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's at sort of the startup, and maybe, well, it could be at any time, I suppose. But here's a question. It's kind of obvious, but I'm sure there's more nuance of an answer. So now you're doing this, you're in stress, more than the normal stress, I guess, but well, maybe not. The dangers of bringing it home. Just what have you seen? Help us. It sounds like the obvious answer is, well, of course it's dangerous. Stupid question, but I'll bet you there's more to it. So help us
It
out.
is, as an entrepreneur, and you've heard this all this time, you can have your best and worst day within the hours of each other. You can gain your biggest client, you could lose your biggest client, you can have a lawsuit filed, you can acquire another practice. Like, it happens all in one day.
Hmm.
And we as entrepreneurs, hopefully over time, are built in a certain way to handle that.
Hmm.
But you can't bring that home.
Yeah.
You can't undump out on your spouse. And everybody's different. Some spouses can handle that, but usually we're usually married people who are a little bit opposite mentally, usually not culturally, but
Yeah.
mentally they're
Yeah.
opposite of us. So us unloading that on them can be a detriment to your marriage. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's tough. And I think also the financial element
Hmm.
of it. Going to your wife saying, "Hey, can we borrow money? I'm going to be short on my mortgage." Making them responsible for quote unquote figuring it out, whatever it is, and that's money, but it's also figuring out with, hey, if the kids are sick, who picks them up, daycare, home care, like making them primarily responsible for figuring out without a level of communication, empathy, I think becomes a big problem.
Yeah. Because just after a while it's too much or yeah.
It builds up. So you as a business owner are making the sacrifices. You're foregoing that nice big corporate check salary.
Hmm.
You're going into an uncertain. You put yourself in a situation where people will say no to you,
Hmm.
and that's tough. But your partner also is not going to get the best of you all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And some are more understanding than others, and
Hmm.
and that's no right or wrong. It's just how it works, and
Right.
that's really the danger. They can't they can or cannot sometimes really take on that full scope of what you're becoming, and that's tough.
Yeah. And as you're saying this, your partner had hopes and dreams too. And now you come home and say, it's extreme. I think we need to, borrow money from your parents. The instantaneous reaction is I just threw a wrench in, into whatever I thought was, you know, what it's just it's a bomb. Bomb goes off and there's damage. And damn, you know.
I love your wording of your partner had expectations of their life.
Yeah, of
When
course.
they married you on the assumption of a certain profession, a medical profession. It's like, I'm marrying a doctor. Therefore, more than likely, I'll be able to go on vacation at least once or twice a year.
You build things up, whatever it is,
What,
and not
and they had,
wrongly and not irrationally and probably fairly
yeah,
accurately,
yeah, yeah. I expected a highly active parent who's going to be there. We're going to do this thing together.
Hmm.
Um, when we initially talked, he appreciated my career. He appreciated that, thought that I was open minded and had my own way.
Hmm.
Now a lot of that gets put on the back burner, and
Yeah,
that is hard.
yeah. And we are, without thinking about it, we're talking about the guy's the business owner, the practice owner, and the woman is staying at home. It's both ways though, right? I mean, yeah, you've got, and anybody listening to this, Randall just went up like this crazy, oh my God, of course, face. So, yeah, I mean, is it the same? Is it any different? Like, I'm curious. When
It
dynamic flip, well, not when the roles flip, what do
it's
you
very similar. I think men have a harder time dealing with it.
on either side of it?
On the side of their wife going out, starting her own business, and the wife going through the stressors
Yeah.
of the business, the wife going through not being able to be as available in rearing children. Men have a harder time handling that
Hmm.
because culturally, our ego is tied into it.
Yeah.
Well, we're doing a lot of the cleaning. When we call our friends, it's like, hey, I can't go out, I have to babysit.
Hmm.
That it's not right or wrong, but cultural expectations make it harder for men to take on that role.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard, and especially if there's a dynamic of not only is the wife starting on business busier, but also earning is the breadwinner in the household.
Yeah, there's some of that
That
for
that
some. Yeah.
alone, even let's say that she's not busy, will cause some type of tension in the household.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, all right, so we've got, I can see four scenarios. One is, husband business owner, wife stay at home. That's one. Flip those. That's two. What if both work? Do you see any difference? Is this a different episode if we focused on that, or is it easier? Is it harder? Like, what do you see? What have you experienced?
When they're both work, it's usually not that big of a problem because they
Mhm.
come together as an escape. The challenge usually comes in when you sprinkle in kids.
With kids? Damn
Kids come
kids. Freaking,
those things.
yeah, I know. Leeches.
When kids, because kids force an extra layer of coordination.
Yeah,
Because if both professionals are working without kids, it's almost like they're dating. We come home, we
true.
hang out with each other when we're free, we're
Yeah.
each other's stress. We're only coming together for happiness.
Hmm.
But now we're coming together for a parent teacher conference. We're
Hmm.
coming together because the kid has to go to the hospital or have some type of medical scare.
Hmm.
We're having more differences of opinion, not only on how we live our life, but how we parent.
Hmm.
And then also, like I said, the cultural expectation on who is going to spend more time with the child.
Hmm.
That's when I think it gets real sticky, and it makes the two earning income parents more challenging, I
Yeah.
believe, sometimes, especially if they're very, high powered folks.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So what do you say to clients, when this comes up?
Yeah,
Like, how
yeah.
to give us a how the conversation goes. I imagine it's many, but maybe give us, the first one, or which we take us wherever you'd like.
Yeah, yeah. I think the first thing you have to hear the partner out.
Hmm.
I sit down with them and say, okay, let's not be judgmental. But and this is after like I feel some tension in the room. I may have
Hmm.
heard some, some jabs here or there in the conversation. And it's usually I do it on another meeting. I let the jabs go and then I say, hey, let's sit down and
Hmm.
talk about how are you feeling
Hmm.
about this situation? Somebody working so many hours, some things. And we as financial planners have to be really careful. We're not therapists.
Yeah, right. I mean, that was a follow-up question I was going to ask, so I'm glad you said
Um,
that.
we have to know the line, and the line is gray. It is
Mhm.
extremely gray in what we do. So I try to focus on the things that affect money and things that cost money. That's
Mhm.
my area expertise. So, if childcare costs money, let's talk about childcare. If your
Mhm.
career is the driving force that makes money, we can talk about your career. So it's really talking about, hey, how does this make you feel? So the first thing is to be heard.
Mhm.
And I leave it there as far as therapy as I go.
Yeah.
Let each other listen to each other.
Mhm.
And then what I go after that is let's create a structure,
Mhm.
a process on how things are going. It could be as
Mhm.
simple as how bills are being paid. It could be as simple as, how much time we have for each activity.
Mhm.
And once I believe they can agree on the structure, it's going to be an imperfect structure. Things are going to need to adjust.
Sure.
So I articulate that up front and they know that this is going to be imperfect. It's going to be a trial and error thing.
Mhm.
Then as we go on that journey with them,
Yeah.
that's kind of the process is let them be heard, create a structure and process on who's going to do what and when and what. And because I work with so many clients, I can throw out curveballs. What if this happens? What if
Yeah.
that happens? What does
Yeah.
that happen? And over time, I create a list of curveballs that hopefully it'll
Yeah.
cover at least 80% of
Right.
some of the typical things where people will squabble over. That way they can kind of move forward in confidence. I think that's value add. It's something you can't advertise. But one of my secret goals is I want couples to stay together because I know the financial ramifications of them separating.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to, those four sort of major questions. I'm just curious about the first one. How much is enough? How do you like, what's your approach to getting to an answer to that with like a typical couple?
This is a long answer. So there's a parable. I'm not sure you heard of it. It's the fisherman and the investment banker. Have you heard of it
No,
before?
no.
A really short version.
It
I
can't
hope.
be a common interaction, so go for it.
And just a quick summary, and I encourage all the listeners to Google if you can. So,
Okay.
investment banker's on vacation, and of course, he's always business minded. He sees a fisher, and he's like, "Well, you're an excellent fisher. If you gain employees, grow the business so much, and do all this. You can grow, like, make a lot of money. And then the
Hmm.
fisherman asks, and then what I'll do? Well, you can spend time with family and do all these other things. And the fisherman thought in his head, well, I'm already doing that.
Hmm.
So, like you mentioned, what is the goal of your business? Is your business supposed to give you freedom to spend time with your family?
Hmm.
Is your business to create an amazing product or service
Hmm.
that is a pillar of the community? What is your end goal? Because, like, as you mentioned, a lot of people don't sit down and say, what is enough? Okay, so what dollar amount allows you to live that life?
Hmm.
What business scale and size allow you to provide that type of service that you want?
Yeah.
What system and technology you want implemented to see that? You really have to document
Yeah.
what that should look like. And those are, I think, the key elements are what income, how often I want to go vacation, what type of lifestyle do I want to provide my kids, do I want to pay my kids college. My wife has their own ambitions and needs.
Hmm.
Let's sit down and talk about those.
Yeah.
What do those look like? What hobbies does she want? Does she want to start her own business? Does it need to make money? Does it not need to make money? Those are how much is enough. That evolves around that question.
I wonder how much of it is in the how much is enough is because we're both business owners. We face this, and every other on the smaller side business owner spectrum relates to this. That I it's not a large sample, but that I've asked is the sort of the underlying is it yes, it's how much is enough, but then underlying it is um there's like this fear of like this is just like you said. I mean, a recession could crush me. You name it, and you can spin up a number of scenarios that are not totally outlandish that could happen that could just cripple you forever or for at least a while. And so I wonder if um, it's not that it's never enough. It's that if I don't keep going, look, honey, I don't want to scare you, but this thing could crash one day if any of the following things happen, you know? And so it's just this, the perceived lack of maybe enough bedrock underneath it. You know what I mean? Like, does that
Yeah.
ever come up or what?
That makes me think of two scenarios that I hope will kind of highlight. One, I help a lot of people plan for retirement,
Mhm.
and one of my goals and one of my jobs is to actually get people to spend money.
Mhm.
You may be surprised, but if you spend a significant portion of your life saving, putting away, worrying about the market, how do you get somebody to say you're okay? It's okay for your account balance to go down a little bit. This is what we save for, and this is what we plan.
Mhm.
Um, from the business owner standpoint, financial planners have a fear of one day all of our clients calling us on the exact same day saying, "We're no longer want to work with you," and you
Mhm.
start from ground zero.
Mhm.
And it's managing, and that's a fear that I don't know. It's hard to erase. I think you have to tell folks, hey man, let's sit in reality on what could really happen. And there are some things, some tools, some insurances, some increased savings that you can put in place to
Yeah.
mitigate a lot of those risks. And I think that's probably the more practical thing folks will do. But it's also looking at statistically how possible is that, and also can I have enough cushion to last a year? Can I have a cushion last 3 years? What cushion is in my personal financial life? Those things like that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna go to is when I was in corporate, risks abound. Even in large corporate America, let me tell you, it's not hard to get really fearful of things that could happen. But you're right. And so there's two parts to it. The first one is, all right, what are the odds that what you just said is really going to happen? Is it, small, medium, or large? Every client calls you on the same day and says, we're done. Well, I mean, that's, microscopic. I mean, it's never happened yet. True, could happen. You can't rule it out. But the odds of that happening are teensy, teensy tiny. And you look at, what am I afraid of? These are risks. Turn the word from fear to risk. Okay. Insurance could, whack me by 25%. Okay. That's probably small. And then depending on, the odds of that happening, you said, well, what do I need to do about it? And so, well, actually, no, it's the first one is what are the odds? And then the second one is if that happened, how bad would it hurt? So if every client left on the same day, that would be, a death blow. Okay. So now what do I do with that? Build up your emergency fund. You do the things that you were just describing. Because if the pain would be crushing, you got to do something. And then the other end, it's like, well, if it's a small risk. Yeah, maybe we just let it ride. But you don't go into this like heavy math or anything, but you just you translate fear to risk. And then what are the odds it's going to happen? How bad would it hurt if it did? What do I need to do in response? Maybe every year you say, here's my, keep me up at night list. Any changes? Okay. That's what I learned because we had in the companies I worked at. I mean, nothing bad, but you're like, oh my God, if this happened. So what should we do? Something, nothing, big, small, whatever. You can do the same thing in your personal life and your business life. Um, don't overanalyze it, but just, call these things and really ask yourself, what are the odds that that would happen?
And I think we as business owners just have to accept business is risky.
It is.
Business encompasses risk. You went into this to take a risk. I'm
Mhm.
betting on
You didn't
myself.
think of it that way, but you did.
Yeah, I'm betting on myself. There's no backstop. Some litigious things. Hopefully, have the insurance in place, or liability insurance. So
Right.
there are risks involved in this, and I think just accept it as part of the game, the practice. It's highly unlikely that something's going to slip and you have a lawsuit that kills your entire practice. But
What are the odds?
yeah, well,
You know?
accept the risk. And I also think of every level you go in your business.
Hmm.
Make sure you have a solid foundation.
Hmm.
Okay. So hire my first full-time practitioner.
Hmm.
I hire, a full out staff. I built this building. Well, make sure that foundation is solid at each step. Just don't go
Hmm.
straight up without having that support as
Hmm.
you move up in this world. And I think that that'll help. And going back to your partner's feeling those risks too.
Hmm.
They're feeling like, well, some could happen.
Yeah.
Or, we took out an extra loan for that new equipment thing.
Hmm.
I'm sweating over here because you might not be articulating, but you're twitching when
Yeah.
you're at home. You're twitching when you're
The
at
body
dinner,
language. Yeah.
and you may be shorter with them than maybe you would prefer. And I think that we have to talk about that transfer. So what I think all that says is you should give your partner more grace
Hmm.
than maybe you feel like is deserved,
Yeah.
because they are feeling things that you aren't even articulating, and things they may have not even signed up.
And you know what? More often than not, partners got some good ideas. I mean, they're on this train too. I need help with X. I can't figure it out. Maybe your partner's got a good idea. And
And I'm a person of faith, and I think intuition is important.
mhm,
Okay. And if they say a house divided, but if you're doing something that your partner disagrees with, it is going to be an uphill climb. It is more advantageous to get your partner on your side. And sometimes it takes a lot of pre-work before that big
yeah,
idea comes up.
yeah,
And your partner, if you can get her blessing, her okay, sometimes her, like you said, thoughtfulness and brainstorming ideas, that's an asset.
yeah.
So just as you nurture your business asset, you need to nurture that I said maybe
The
consider your wife
marriage
as part of
asset,
your,
the
your marriage.
relationship asset. Yeah,
You have to nurture that. And what does that take? Just like a great employee, sometimes you have to take them out to eat.
yeah.
Sometimes you have to give them a bonus. Sometimes you have to add a boy or encourage them.
Mhm.
And don't think of your spouse as employee, but think about what specifically your partner needs to be at the best for you. And that sounds selfish, but I think you have to. I think that's a good.
Yeah, yeah. And I can tell you when I've brought the occasional whatever to my wife, like I'm stuck on blah. And way more often than not, she'll say something. I went, that's a freaking good idea. Like 1,000 years, I wouldn't come up with that on my own. So I'll do that. That's a great idea. And
It,
to the other one about you made a point earlier about the fear and everything else. When my father was like, so he owned a business for 45 years. Uh, and I would talk to him in my early years. He passed away since. And one day I remember asking him, I'm sitting working and just this wave of fear never had happen. Maybe I'm 2 years in, I don't know. And I called him up and I said, Dad, were you ever afraid? And he said, Carl, every day. Like, really? He's like, it doesn't go away. What'd you do? You keep going. What are you going to stand still? Nothing gets solved by standing still. Keep going, keep pushing, keep whatever. Um, yeah, you know,
I, I think that goes back to I told you earlier about, as you reach a different level, you make sure you build that foundation.
Hmm.
Part of that, as you're alluding to, you have to build that resiliency inside of you.
Hmm.
That could take therapy, that could take, a lot of personal time work, that could take a lot, whatever that is for you.
Hmm.
You have to build that resiliency, anticipating that next level. Because, like I said, I don't think whatever it is goes away.
No, no, it does not. You can hope it does, but it does not.
It's not-
No,
yeah.
no. Um, we have covered a lot of ground, but is there anything you think we missed that we really should have hit on but didn't get to?
Let's see. And so we could touch a lot of different things. If you can, this is a luxury for a lot of business owners. They can try to keep the fluctuations in your personal financial life separate from your business.
Hmm.
And,
Speak
and
more
and
about that.
yeah, so it's tough for a lot of business owners. When you're a business owner, you have two sets of books. You have your business books and your personal books.
Hmm.
Okay, and usually opposites attract. So the business owner is more comfortable with taking risk, while
Yeah.
your partner may not be as comfortable and really need that level of security. So operate your personal life. If your personal life needs a high level of security, make sure you have a large cash fund. Make sure that's a steady transfer going into that account on a regular basis. Make sure that the bills are paid, there's nothing over withdrawn. Try to keep that as secure as possible. When your business life, I think you should run the same way. But um, make sure that whatever's happening here does not affect your personal life. And I think if you try to keep that a nice line, a dividing line,
Hmm.
I think it's important. If you can, and I understand it's a luxury, don't try to get a mortgage on your house. Don't try to get personal loans from your family members. Try to keep that separate. And I think even though your partner may not say anything, but they will appreciate that because they will see that, hey, he's providing that security, that's calm and smooth thing that I need, and I
Yep.
know that he's going through a lot on this end, and it may be unfair, but I've seen that be valuable for a lot of clients I work
Well, and you talk about that as the partner. If I were the owner in this scenario, and I'm watching fluctuations at in the business, but at home it's a bit more serene. I think I would feel better too. I mean, who would feel worse, about that? That would calm everybody.
with. Yeah, and I think the last thing, I think you're alluding to it. Um, Try not to make work your safe space
Ooh, I didn't thought about
above
that.
your household. So a lot of times we know what we're doing at work. We're good at work. We're growing. We're getting adorations, attaboys from the community members, our patients, partners, other people,
Mhm.
and it feels great. We're out on the speaking tour, and sometimes that feels a lot better than being at home.
Yeah, that's a bigger. What do we do? Yeah, that's
So how can I? What are the things I need to do to make my home just as much as a happy place?
yeah. And I'm no therapist
Um,
either, so I'm not going to opine about that one. But
yeah,
that sounds like a biggie.
yes, yes.
That sounds like a biggie. I suppose if you work from home, it's even more dangerous, right? Because
Yeah. I do a lot of work from home, and the basement does become a sanctuary.
yeah, yeah, that's funny. Um, so the final question I ask every guest is, the context is a listener's listening to you and saying, Randall's right. I'm not where I need to be on this. It's, we just had a fight yesterday. I don't know, and this has got to stop, but I don't know how to do it. Where do I start? So Randall, what's one or two super simple things this listener can do to, they're enthusiastic about changing, but they just don't know where to get started. So what would you tell them to do?
Create a separate meeting every single month where you talk about finances.
You and who? Your wife or your
You and your
spouse?
partner,
Your partner.
your
Yeah.
partner, your spouse,
Sorry,
your
listeners. I said wife. I have a wife. So, but you and your partner.
you and your partner. Have a set time, and do not expect this grandiose meeting. With business owners, we want to see spreadsheets, we want to see graphs and charts, we want to do projections. Start off small and make sure that meeting is a safe space for both parties. And
Mm,
if there has been some harm done, know that there is going to be a journey to rectify that harm, whether
mm,
you believe there needs to be or not. So
mhm.
I would say have a set meeting, have the conversation, and go on that financial journey with your spouse. And I think if you can create that safe space to talk about money,
Hmm.
Over the years, that will pay dividends because um, our financial lives can be lonely,
Mm.
and you don't want that to exclude your partner or your spouse in that. So bring them in, let them, because how we manage money is a very intimate thing. And if
Hmm.
you think there's a slight break in intimacy, it could be because you guys are not talking about money.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's a worthwhile place to start. And I like the first of the four big, questions you raise is how much is enough? Because that's a goal. Once the two of you agree on enough looks like this with enough specificity that you both know it, all the other questions impact the ability to get there. How much risk? I forget what the other two, but they were all like, you know, questions whose answers either help or hinder the ability to answer to get to the how much is enough number. So starting could take a while. How much is enough? I'll bet you both don't agree at the start. I'll bet you both have vague answers at the start. So to give it time, defining a goal is worth the time.
And the goal is not to agree. The goal is not to come with a conclusion. The goal is to gain understanding of the other person's perspective.
Yeah, yeah, and probably once you both look at each other, go, I know what you mean. The answer probably come rather quickly.
Yeah.
I'll bet. You
Yeah.
know, I'll bet. This has been great. We haven't done a topic like this before. It's a little off, typically we're more tangible tool time, I don't know, really in the business, but we don't often go into a topic like this. So I really appreciate you coming on and telling us about it.
Thank you for having me. And there's some things I deal with clients that I wish I could yell to the mountaintop. And thank you for being that mountaintop for me.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying so. It's really it's like I said, it's not something we've done before. And it's look, business owner, practice owner, listener, you could be crushing it. But if home life is tenuous, are you really crushing it? I mean, why? Not why, but like, it's unfinished business. You got to deal with that. So this is really relevant. Thank you for coming on Practice Care. Thank you for exposing this for us. Um, We've got all the contact information that you provided, so that's in the show notes to this episode. So anyone who is, interested in Randall and what he had to say, and you want to get a hold of him, now you've got another way to do it. A couple of points before we wrap up. First, please subscribe to Practice Care if you haven't already. Practice Care is one word. We're everywhere, easy to find. Drop a new episode every week, and that's just the easiest way to stay up to date on the new episodes. And finally, if you're like us or Randall and you serve private practice owners, or you're one yourself, either way, you've got some experience or expertise on the business side of private practice. Don't overthink what that is. That could be something simple. Usually it is. You think it's boring and who would care? Lots of people care. Something you figured out is something else that lots of people are struggling with. In the show notes to every episode, there's a link, a couple of clicks. Tell us what's on your mind and we'll get you scheduled as soon as possible. Thanks very much. And until next time.